diagnosis. Colleagues and friends, good morning. First of all, I'd like to start by congratulating the EU Career Institute for the organisation of this forum, which is at a historic moment. As Director General for Competition for 8 years, I had the privilege to work very closely with the Korean Fair Trade Commission, and we established in the area of competition policy an excellent cooperation, which contributed in the longer term to really strong global convergence on antitrust policy and merger policies throughout the world. KFTC being, with the European Commission, a major supporter of the International Competition Network. But I address you this morning as Director General for Energy, and although the theme today is security and cybersecurity and data protection, I want to try to use the energy area as an illustration of how important, even in the area of energy, cybersecurity and data protection is. Now, Korea on the one hand and the European Union on the other share quite a lot of challenges in the area of energy. We are fossil fuel dependent. We basically take the price of oil, gas, globally, wherever the demand is coming from. We are not in a position to determine those prices. We are import dependent, therefore. We're also anxious to make sure that our competitiveness is not weakened by that dependence. And therefore we're equally interested in development of indigenous sources of energy which are competitive, in particular those which are low carbon, because of the move which Korea shares to combat climate change in a crucial area in reduction of emissions. Therefore, in the context of the free trade agreement, but equally more generally, one can expect, as already happens, quite a considerable degree of cooperation on the development of energy technologies, on energy investments on both sides, between Korean companies and European companies. Nuclear power is not the most popular source of energy in all our countries. At the same time, 10 of our countries are interested in rebuilding or building nuclear capacities. And faced with the challenge of doing that, there are few centers of excellence on nuclear technology in the world, and Korea takes part in that. But looking more closely at the relationship between the challenge of cybersecurity and data protection and the energy industry, I think while dependence on electricity increases, recent events remind us how fragile the grid can be, or the grids can be. This applies in the EU, in Italy over the weekend, by the way, an outage. 7 or 8 years ago, or equally an outage which affected several parts of the European Union. And the vulnerability of systems is not just determined by technology, but also by the threats of malicious acts and industrial espionage, which can cause considerable undermining of the basis for our action. The introduction of information technologies into grids in our countries aims to increase reliability and contributes to the smart grid's primary goals, that is, boosting resilience, reliability, flexibility, consumer empowerment, and efficient grid management. You can imagine the challenge that is facing now with renewables, which are becoming a major source of energy inside the European Union, hopefully a competitive low-cost source in the long term. There too is a challenge. How do we make sure that the costs of such technologies come down? They are coming down in onshore wind and solar, but still there is a system challenge, balancing that intermittency, which depends on smartness. It depends on smartness in the grids at transmission and distribution level. It also depends upon the smartness of use of energy in metering, as well as the capacity for charging systems for electric vehicles to contribute to the overall system balancing. But as smart grids introduce the processing of personnel data and integration of ICT on a massive scale, data protection, privacy and security also become major concerns, not only for industry and investors, but also for individual consumers. And this creates vulnerabilities which are paradoxically in contradiction to the precise aims of the smart grid. We inject more communication to make the grid resilient, but we also make it more vulnerable to cyber attacks. And moreover, at the level of individual consumers, smart meters, for example, generate potential new risks for data subjects. They think, for example, of price discrimination on the basis of your energy consumption, profiling for behavioral investments, etc. There needs to be a bidirectional exchange of information between suppliers and consumers. At the moment, the overwhelming majority of data on consumption of energy is in the hands of suppliers, and there is no empowerment of consumers to be able to influence what they're paying. Now, these risks, which I referred to, were previously not present in the energy sector, unlike other environments such as telecommunications and e-commerce. Now, to develop innovative energy services for consumers, consumer data should be fully at the disposal of the consumer. They should be able to use their data for various purposes and with various partners, aggregators, intermediaries who can help them use energy better. Faced with inevitably rising global prices of energy, key component of any energy policy worldwide, in particular those who have no natural resources, is to use energy better. And you can only do that when you have the data available to do that. And it must be shared, and it has to be shared with consumer consent at the appropriate level of detail between retail market actors. Now, in the European internal energy market, which is still in process of completion, which requires a lot of exchange of data between systems operators, between suppliers and systems operators as well. We've got to achieve the right balance between the free flow of data and respect for the fundamental rights of data protection. And this has prompted the Commission to encourage smart grid development while ensuring high data protection security levels. We've got standardization mandates already put out to our standardization organizations in Europe on smart grids, smart meters, and charging interface with e-vehicles. The first set of standards were delivered in 2012. Further work is ongoing on security and data protection standards. And as you well may know, an international conference on standards took place in 2012 with the fruitful collaboration with the Korean Agency of Technology and Standards. Legal recommendations have also been issued to try to guarantee data protection, privacy and security in smart metering rollout. This was done also in 2012. While we're at present working with the main stakeholders of the smart grid sector on the development of a template for data protection impact assessments on best available techniques for smart metering and appropriate security measures for the smart grid. So the level of grid smartness should always be defined in relation to cyber-related risks, costs, public image, and consumer trust. Now, recent NSA revelations of blanket surveillance and intentional backdooring of encryption algorithms, making all of us less secure as an end result, have reminded us how crucial our overarching work on data protection and cybersecurity is. Moreover, current discussions on the digital economy to increase growth and competitiveness, under the slogan here in Europe of digital single market by 2015, underline the importance of timely adoption of revised data protection and cybersecurity frameworks for growth and trust. The Data Protection Forum aims to create maximum protection with minimum red tape. It seeks to enhance legal security for ordinary people and companies doing business in one or more European countries by ensuring direct applicability in 28 member states. It emphasizes transparency, explicit consent, and accountability. The cybersecurity strategy includes a proposal for a network and information security directive, which applies to all critical infrastructure operators, including energy, imposing obligations on them in respect of continuity of core services and notification of significant security interests. To conclude, we need more competition, but also more clarity as to which rules we are playing by. This is true for privacy and security more than anything else. The European approach strives to strike the right balance. The digital world does not need another great firewall, as was recently said to the States. Rather, data protection and security need to be addressed effectively with the right interventions in the form of security controls, balanced risk mitigation strategies, and proactive attention at legislative and operational levels. Our action in this regard brings about several key shifts. First, from a traditional compliance-based approach to risk management and mitigation approach. Secondly, end-to-end security approach, incorporating all parties and designed at an early stage as part of the architecture of the network. And finally, consumers at the center of a competitive retail market in charge of their own consumption data, own production data, and consumers will be producers as well in our new energy world, and personal data, and engaging in a dialogue and partnership on an equal footing with market actors. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish every success for these 2 days of discussion. I've tried to emphasize only one small component of a wider picture, the one which is absolutely vital for both Korea and for the European Union. Thank you very much.